Okay, we're back. Wearing my t-shirt as promised. University of Warsaw. That's where I go to school to learn Polish. Why am I learning Polish? Because I met and married the most wonderful, beautiful girl in the world a couple of years ago. And she asked me two things. She said, we need to live in Poland because she's a doctor here and you need to learn Polish. So, anyway, she's worth it. So, that's why I'm learning Polish. All right, back to business. We set the stage. We have Wilson in the White House. We have the money cabal basically controlling everything now because the guardians of liberty are gone. They got rid of the senators as representatives of the states and protecting the states' rights. So now the field was wide open. They could run and put touchdown after touchdown now, and nobody could stop them. All right, so the next thing they decided to do was take the old Aldrich Act, which had failed because they realized the cabal was behind it. They got their 25 newspapers to start promoting it very cleverly. The cabal guys came out and said, oh, we're against this. It will destroy our banking system. Don't do this. Don't do this. And the newspapers were touting, oh, the cabal's against it, so it must be good for the people. And it passed. All right, so the Federal Reserve Act was implemented. Now, there is nothing federal about it. It is a private central bank issuing the public's currency. And it's definitely anything but a reserve. It is the power to take worthless paper and issue it in the name of we the people. Now, the Coinage Act of 1792 defined and still defines a dollar as 371.25 grains of silver. Now, I don't have a dime anymore, but this is 20 Polish grosze, which is about the size of a dime. So roughly 10 of those until 1964 still constituted a dollar. And I could take my dollar that my grandmother gave me that's still in a little piggy bank, and I could take it to the bank and say, I want $1 in silver. But I can't now because now this is a Federal Reserve note. That's what you've got, backed by nothing but the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, which is $20 trillion in debt. Bad risk. Now, what happened to my $1 in my piggy bank that Hilda Gwynn gave me when I was a child? It's now not even worth one of these. It's worth 1 cent. 99% of my dollar has been robbed by these bandits that control the Federal Reserve. Now, what did our founding fathers think of this? They thought it was a horrible idea. In fact, one of the first things President George Washington did was dismantle our first private central bank, started by Robert Morris, and he said that this species of fraud can destroy our nation. We've now had 4 central banks, private ones. The first 3 failed spectacularly. That you can read about in the book. It's in chapter 2 or 3. All right, so that's where we were. And this was all a plan. And as one of the apologists for this debauching of the currency, John Maynard Keynes, you'll find that in the book as well. He said in 1919 in his treatise on the economic consequences of the peace, there is no subtler, no surer means of overthrowing the existing base of society than to debauch the currency. The process engages all the hidden forces of economic law on the side of destruction and does it in a manner which not one man in a million is able to diagnose. All right, so they knew what they were doing, and then they grow the money supply, grow the money supply. All right, so here's my cup of coffee. Now, suppose that $1 was a cup of coffee. All right, now instead of a cup of coffee, we've got a huge vat where they've been pouring water into it ever since Grandma gave me that $1. It's now worth a penny, and that is water, not coffee. So we've got a problem that is going to continue as long as the Federal Reserve is allowed to continue. I've written a plan in the book on how we can take America's gold and silver supplies, actually create a backed dollar to match the constitutional requirement, but use the Federal Reserve notes and let that pay off all the $20 trillion in debt and then go back to real money. So you can read about it. All right, so that was step number 2 in destroying our republic, and they succeeded. And of course, Wilson signed it into law because he was their man, and House was living in the House to make him do it. So that is what created the real decline, because now these guys can fight wars and finance wars like, where they were in trouble before this. So then the Federal Reserve just printed money and paid J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller and all these guys, paid off their debts and bought a lot of worthless, useless ammunition and shipped it to another war, and they ended up making billions on that, as they have every war since. So that's part 2. Now we'll get to part 3 next. I hope you'll stay tuned. You can get the book in advance and you can get a good grade on the test. Thank you very much. Take care.